I searched my databanks and I thought to myself, what is another unlikely Christmas movie that I will actually enjoy watching? A Christmas movie that I absolutely adore. A movie that ended an era for one of the most iconic filmmakers ever because of a toy tie-in that he did with McDonald's. We are watching Batman Returns tonight. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we are watching our very first superhero movie in the entirety of film night. We are around 200 movies in.
That.
And tonight's film is Tim Burton's second Batman movie, the 1992 absolute fucking masterpiece, Batman Returns. Now, if you've never seen Batman Returns, Batman Returns, I think, is even better than Batman, which is Burton's movie with the Joker. It features the Penguin and Catwoman, and it is a tremendous movie. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of background because it's my film class, and I just want to do it. So Batman, the original trilogy, was supposed to be a trilogy. It was supposed to be Batman, Batman Returns, and what would eventually become Batman Forever. However, Batman Returns featured a toy tie-in with McDonald's leading up to the film. The toy tie-in was one of the most successful Happy Meal toy tie-ins ever. Kids were flooding to McDonald's to get the Happy Meals with Batman. And because of this, parents assumed that Batman Returns was a children's movie because up to that point, the Batman that they knew was pretty damn campy. Oh, Lord in heaven, were they wrong. And so an entire generation of kids, including me, were traumatized by Batman Returns because it is violent, it is sexual, it is dark, it is weird, it is Burton at his most masochistic, and the parents were fucking livid. So even though Batman and Batman Returns made a shit ton of money, the studio brought Burton in to meet about what would become Batman Forever. And Burton came in with his pitch decks and he was like, here's the movie I want to make. And the studio said, Tim, that's great. Unfortunately, go fuck yourself. And took him off the movie. Even though he had two wildly successful films. And they gave the series to Schumacher. And when they gave the series to Schumacher, they told him, we do not want Tim Burton's Batman. We want a enormously campy Batman. We want a return to the Batman that we saw on television. And so we got Val Kilmer and Jim Carrey in Batman Forever, which is actually not a terrible film, but that movie led on to Batman and Robin, which was a fucking disaster, killed the Batman franchise, which would then hibernate for years until a little known director who has made some movies like, I don't know, Memento and some other ones. His name's Christopher Nolan. He picked it up and took the Batman in another direction, very reminiscent of Frank Miller's Dark Knight. And that is the Batman that we kind of all know in our generation. The dark, brooding.
Let's go.
Where is she? Where is Rachel? Batman. Until 2002, when we had yet another Batman who is kind of based on the Detective Batmans, Long Halloween, and stuff like that. this is one of the most teachable superhero films there is. So the reason I think that is, I think this film's got a lot going on that isn't just the fact that it's a superhero movie. So first of all, in the background, Danny Elfman absolutely fucking slayed the Batman soundtrack. Absolutely fucking obliterated it. And then beyond that, the even crazier part is the first Batman has original music by Prince. Everybody forgets that the first Batman was scored by fucking Prince. Yeah, there's Prince as the fucking Joker. Anyway, needless to say, it's a very different Batman than we are used to. It's a very different superhero film that we are used to. And what I would present to you is that 90% of the superhero movies you have watched are within 4 film universes. Oh, yeah, wow. That's right? Cool. Either they are Dark Knight, Chris Nolan's Batmans. They are DC films. They are Marvel films, or they're Sony films. I think Sony, I'm not going to call those Marvel Universe films because Morbin and that other shit is just a little bit diff. And then the rest of the superhero projects come from Amazon. So the majority of the superhero films you have watched are 5 film universes. But at one point, we used to get filmmakers giving us really, really unique, not always great, but unique and kind of like one-off takes on superhero movies. One example of that is Sam Raimi's Darkman. Darkman, if you've ever seen it, doesn't really look or feel like any other superhero movie ever. It's this random Universal film with Liam Neeson playing a superhero that we kind of all forgot about. And it's fucking insane. It's weird. It's violent. It's dark. It's crazy. And you don't kind of get these like stories that exist within the filmmaking style of the director. You get superhero films that now fit a universe, right? Because everything is building to a larger storyline or some climactic, team up. And so Marvel and DC really control the style of almost all the films in their universe, maybe save like a few kind of outliers there, like Joker and the Batman. And I would argue also Guardians of the Galaxy kind of has its own thing because Gunn kind of does his own thing. But still, yeah, Logan, they're outliers. By and large, we get plot projects that very much fit a cinematic universe, and they are mulled over. So to get to watch these Batman films, like they are Burton films first, and they are Batman films second, I would argue. It is hard to look at a Batman movie and just like you kind of, every time you're watching a Wes Anderson film, even if you're not sure it's a Wes Anderson film, you start going, wait, everything is symmetrical. There's French subtitles. He just put on a record from 1957. This is a Wes Anderson movie. This movie, even if you didn't know it's a Burton film, you start going, okay, every piece of architecture looks like it's out of a Gothic like cathedral. There's fake snow in every fucking scene. Everything is kind of carnival. This is a Burton movie. And it's awesome to see Burton put his fingerprints all over a movie like Batman. I love Batman and Batman Returns. I really do. I think that they are like these like exceptional movies that I would probably enjoy even if they weren't Batman films, but they are Batman films, and that makes me enjoy them even more. Now, they are a little bit hokey, right? They do have a little element of like but I really enjoy that, and I think it reminds us that like the Batman that we know isn't the Batman that people started out with, right? Detectives comic Batman, and more iconically, this Batman, gee willikers, Robin, is where this lore started, right? This is the first on-screen incarnation. Adam West, Batman is where Batman started. So you really look at Burton's Batman, and Burton's Batman is kind of like the first cinematic jump we have of him being this totally camp character to him becoming the Dark Knight. Now, that's not to say in comic books he wasn't making that departure already. I think the guy that we have to thank for Batman as we know him is Frank Miller. Frank Miller's Batman is just so fucking iconic and dark and violent and where is he? I'll kill you. That's the Batman that like we kind of fell in love with, but it's certainly not his origin. And watching Burton take this character and mold it into this dark blah, 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 blah. While I think the Joker is a really good character, and I love the first Batman, I really do. 1992 Batman's Return, like that one chatter was talking about, the characters are so vibrant, right? You have the denied son, heir of a very wealthy family who, because of a disfigurement, is raised in the sewer and loathes the rich, only to end up being embraced by them and be made a mayor who is, you know, like you see Cobblepot kind of go from this based character to being this like total monster, sex pervert, sex pest freak the moment he gets power, the moment he joins with Max. And I think Burton was trying to talk about absolute power corrupting absolutely there. And you also have Catwoman, who is kind of the beginning of her anti-hero story here, in that she is abused by Maxwell Schreck and she becomes radicalized and violent. And you can never really disagree with what she's doing in the course of the film, right? She's not as much a villain as she is a true anti-hero. Yeah, I just love these characters. I love the way that they create both of them. You know, it's interesting. I think a lot of modern superhero movies draw a lot from Batman Returns in that they set up two characters at once. And I almost kind of love how the two stories play off of one another instead of setting up like one villain and then having them play out. It's interesting that the Batman, the most recent Batman film that came out, chose to marry the same two characters again, right? We got the Penguin and Catwoman in the same film again. Coincidence? I think not. And I liked the Batman, but I don't know if I like it as much as Batman Returns. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, which is incredible, is up until this point, superhero projects were very much considered only children's fare. And this is really, really, really true. And you can see, hang on. So here's an 8-minute video. I want to watch this. This is amazing, right? They did a toy tie-in here. Let's take a look.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Junk History, the show where I play with a bunch of toys and you all watch me do it. Today's toys are a pair of Batman Returns action cars featured in McDonald's Happy Meals to promote the movie Batman Returns, released in the summer of 1992. They kind of look like wacky racers, like like characters from a terrible Batman-themed Mario Kart game. Now, driving is not a continued motif in this film, so it's unclear why they decided on this particular avenue for their value meal prizes. I mean, the Penguin does have a car, but it doesn't look anything like this. It's a big yellow duck. That would have been a fun toy. A big duck. Think of all the stuff you can do with that. There's also the Batmobile, with rad detachmobile action to recreate that exciting scene in the movie where the Batmobile explodes into a torpedo for the most situationally dependent feature ever installed in a major vehicle. Oh, nobody move. Also, you may have noticed that this particular plastic edition of the Penguin bears little resemblance to his appearance in the film, and this is by design. You see, Batman Returns was the sequel to one of the biggest merchandising juggernauts of all time, Tim Burton's Batman. After all was said and done, Burton's 1989 Batman film sold $500 million in merchandise, nearly $750 million by the end of 1992, at a time when superhero movies were far from the industry standard they've come to be. Before Batman, you got maybe 3 superhero films a decade, and they all starred Superman, and occasionally Dolph Lundgren. The point is, Batman was an unexpected goldmine of licensed bullshit, including shirts, hats, posters, video games, breakfast cereal, and toys. Most notably a Batcave playset, a figure of Michael Keaton's Batman with a grappling hook that shot straight out of his dick, and Bob the Goon with kicking action. How hard of a ransom must I pay to get Bob the Goon? He is staggeringly affordable. Why didn't I get Bob the Goon?
Because history forgot
Anyway,
Bob the
Warner
Goon.
Brothers knew what a money-printing t-shirt seller they had on their hands, so they decided to play it cool the second time around, which is a phrase here meaning they waited a little bit longer to assault the citizens of the world with purchasable Batman commercials. According to a New York Times article published 10 days before the film's release in June of 1992, Warner Brothers didn't get the Batman Returns hype train rolling until mid-February of that year, which is downright Spartan in terms of the Hollywood promotional machine. The article quotes the president of Warner Brothers as saying they didn't want people to get tired of Batman before the movie even came out, which is a sentiment Warner Brothers has long since abandoned to drown in a dirty sewer, much like the Penguin at the beginning of this film. Now, it's funny to think of the blood-encrusted wheels of a Hollywood hype machine rotating with anything approaching restraint, and that's because restraint means something entirely different when you're talking about a blockbuster film with a higher merchandising budget than most humans will earn over the course of several lifetimes. So here's some numbers for comparison. The first Batman film had 19 different t-shirt licenses, whereas Batman Returns had only 2. Meanwhile, there were 1 billion toys for Batman Returns. There were like 12 different versions of Batman, plus armored penguins, vehicles, f***ing Robin, Catwoman, and another plastic penguin avatar that conspicuously looked nothing like the mutated sex criminal Danny DeVito portrayed in the film. So basically, there wasn't less merchandise.
Mutant sex criminal.
It was simply more focused. Warner and its promotional affiliates, which this time around included Diet Coke, McDonald's, and Choice Hotels, spent upwards of $100 million to integrate the Caped Crusader and his new Rogues Gallery of Villains into their products, which included a truly excellent Diet Coke commercial in which Batman races across town to capture a can of soda, only to be thrown one at the last minute by Catwoman, despite the fact that it's probably warm at this point. A Choice Hotel commercial wherein a flying bat briefcase of bat money attacks a family of 4 on vacation, and a bunch of awesome bullshit at McDonald's, including cups with collector lids and a handsome collection of plastic cars meant to reward children for choking down the contents of their Happy Meals without suing their parents for emancipation. Once again, it behooves me to point out that the Penguin featured in this child's toy looks like Lionel Barrymore in a Billy Ray Cyrus wig, and not at all like the Hot Topic Stop Boy that appears on screen. And therein lies the thread that will bring this whole bat-shaped castle tumbling down, which I guess would be Wayne Manor. Wayne Manor's not bat-shaped, is it? That would be too much. You're tipping your hand, Bruce. Anyway, the reason that no child's toy based on the continuing cinematic adventures of Tim Burton's Batman bore the actual visage of Danny DeVito's Penguin is because those toy producers correctly reasoned that maybe Danny DeVito's Penguin wasn't for kids.
Yes.
He's a corpse-skinned demon who constantly talks about f***ing, and whose master plan is to kidnap all the firstborn children of Gotham City, drive them into the sewer in a child catcher caboose, and drown them. He is the exact character prophesized by every after-school special about not talking to strangers. Plus, he's hideous. Nobody wants to be the company that makes that toy. That's a bad toy. Once Batman Returns was released, it didn't take long for every parent in the country to figure that out too. After months of being assaulted by Batman Returns merchandise aimed squarely at their children, restraint, moviegoers were more than a little surprised to see Batman face off against a juggalo pastry chef who bites a man's nose off and graphically demands to have sex with every woman he sees.
Just the pussy I've been looking for.
Also, the film opens with 2 stuffy-ass Richters having a deformed baby in what appears to be a 19th century home birth, locking that child in a series of black cages cruelly designed to look like bassinets, and then throwing that child into the river. Danny Elfman's triumphant Batman theme begins playing while we watch a screaming imprisoned infant float through a sewer. Those are the first 2 minutes of the movie Kenner and McDonald spent the last few months making sure every kid in America couldn't wait to see, because nothing puts butts in seats like socially pressured infanticide. Now keep in mind, this was the summer of 1992, so Facebook and Twitter didn't exist as platforms on which these these unpleasantly surprised parents could vent their frustrations, they took to letter writing campaigns directed at both Warner Brothers and McDonald's, accusing them of selling a violent horror movie to children. McDonald's initially tried to distance themselves from the controversy, insisting that they were merely using their lucrative Happy Meal platform to promote the idea of Batman to children, rather than urging them to see a specific film. But everyone immediately realized this was bullshit. Warner Brothers themselves also tried to dodge the bullet of parental anger, insisting that they hadn't provided McDonald's with any images from the film to use in making their toys. They said that with a straight face. So in response to the understandable backlash, both Warner Brothers and McDonald's, who had sought each other out as lucrative partners for a multi-million-dollar Batman sequel, immediately tried to sell each other out. The end result was a whole lot of parents not buying their kids Happy Meals or Batman tickets, and Warner Brothers not matching McDonald's ad spend with studio money. When the dust settled, Warner Brothers wound up alienating all their merchandising partners from the Batman brand, chief among them McDonald's, who has a lot of money to throw around, and a level of influence over the child moviegoers of America that can only be described as disturbing. It's like walking into Vito Corleone's study on the day of his daughter's wedding to ask him for a favor and then slapping the Godfather full on the face, and pushing the cake into the pool so he doesn't get to have any. He liked to eat. And wedding cake is the most expensive kind of cake you can eat. When the time came for Warner Brothers to decide what to do with their sure thing Batman franchise that was suddenly in danger, they politely asked Tim Burton to f*** off in a meeting that he has described countless times in interviews, behind-the-scenes featurettes, the book Burton on Burton, and really to anyone who will listen. In particular, Burton has called out his version of the Penguin, which is the sight gag version of torture porn, as having been a particular point of contention among the film's producers and advertising partners. Basically, in order to lure merchandising licensees, particularly McDonald's, back to the table, Warner Brothers decided to take Batman in a more family-friendly, all-ages direction, which began with showing Burton the door. He went on to make Ed Wood, a movie that is the exact opposite of a big-budget Batman sequel in just about every conceivable way. So if you're a fan of that flawless piece of cinema, you can thank these little plastic food treasure cars for ushering it into existence. Warner Brothers brought in Joel Schumacher, who in retrospect was an odd choice of director to steer their Batman movies back into the kid-friendly realm, as his youth-oriented resume at this point consisted of films like The Client, St. Elmo's Fire, Boys, none of which has provoked a single toy. McDonald's refused to pony up a dime until they were shown a script, which was hammered out over a series of revisions until, among other things, it included maximum toy potential in the form of several vehicles and outfit changes for the main characters, and a winking piece of self-relation perfectly molded to be used in hamburger commercials.
Can I persuade you to take a sandwich with you, sir?
I'll get drive-through.
McDonald's was pleased and commissioned a series of tie-in Batman Forever movie glasses that sold out in
I still have those movie glasses, BTW.
2 days, before the movie was even released.
They're fucking sick.
Batman Forever went on to gross nearly $200 million in the US and earned McDonald's just so much money. That's the face of compromise, not this fugitive birthday clown. Okay, that's a show. Warm up the time stream. I'm gonna go back for Bob.
So Cracked did a pretty good job of covering that, but they kind of didn't point to the fact that Batman Returns is a fucking phenomenal film, and Batman Forever, I don't know if it's as good a movie. I'll be honest. I think Jim Carrey carries that movie. Double entendre. But truly, I think that Batman Returns is a much better movie. And he says Burton will tell everybody about him losing the Batman franchise. Well, yeah. He made 2 movies that were smash hits. He set up for a 3rd film that would probably have had Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman again, and he never got to make it. He went into a studio where he thought he was going to be pitching the final movie, and they said, oh, by the way, get the fuck out of here. It is one of the most insane bag over the head, punch in the nuts moments. And it's such a cruel and obvious instance of studio greed, right? They had a wildly successful franchise that everybody loved, and they basically sold it out and eventually destroyed it to sell more toys. Tough. A tough thing to hear. Now, they destroyed it so badly that we wouldn't see Batman again on the screen until 2008. A little movie known as Batman Begins would be made by a director named Christopher Nolan. 2005. 2008 was Dark Knight, my bad. It's amazing that ultimately the reason that we might have gotten The Dark Knight is because Schumacher destroyed Batman so badly in 1997 with Batman and Robin. You know, like there is a chance that we don't get those Batmans and Burton just keeps on making Batmans if Schumacher didn't destroy that so entirely. We might have had a film universe getting built around Burton's Batman. I think that's rather unlikely, but it begs the question. Anyway, I love this movie.